I want to talk to you about how to control your AI in enterprise settings. Most companies do not have an AI problem. They have an AI control problem. Executives might be asking, which model shall we use? GPT, Claude, Gemini, or an open source which we can control? And that question really matters. But it's not the question that determines whether your AI agent survives inside the business and outside of it. The better question is, when this AI agent touches your customers, your data, your sales process, your compliance workflow, or your financial decisions, what controls is it allowed to have? Because once AI moves from answering questions to taking actions, the risk changes. A chatbot can give you a bad answer. An agent can take a bad action. It can email the wrong customer, update the wrong record, use the wrong data, expose sensitive information, make an unsupported recommendation, or confidently complete the wrong workflow. There are events that whole production databases were deleted by an AI agent in some companies. This is why the most important part of an AI may not be the model we use per se. It may be the harness around the model, the control around the model. The model creates capability. The harness creates accountability. And if we, the executives, understand that distinction, we will make much better AI decisions. Welcome to the Executive AI Advantage podcast. I am Alex Louizos, MD, a physician, an AI engineer, and an AI strategy consultant. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most important ideas in enterprise AI, the Agentic AI harness. It sounds technical, but it is actually a boardroom concept because the Agentic harness is what turns an AI model from a powerful demo into a controlled business system. And in this episode, I want to show you three things. First, what an agentic harness actually is. Second, why it matters more as AI agents become more autonomous. And third, the 5 questions every executive should ask before approving an AI agent inside the company. Because the companies that will win AI will not simply be the companies with access to the best models. They will be the companies that know how to wrap these models in the right operating system, the right harness. So let's talk about how the harness matters more than the model. Remember, the model is the capability. The harness is the accountability. So the model is the technical question, which model should we use? But the boardroom question is the accountability of our model, the controls of what it can do. Let's make this simple. A normal chatbot answers. An AI agent acts. A chatbot might summarize a document. An AI agent might read the document, compare it with a policy, update the system, create a report, send a message, and recommend a next step. This is the difference. The moment the AI can take steps, call tools, use APIs, access databases, trigger workflows, and make recommendations that influence our decisions, we need a control layer. The control layer is the agentic harness. An agentic harness is the software and governance layer around our LLM model, which defines what the agent can do. And an agent is nothing more than an instance of an LLM model with a prompt. So the harness is the package around our agent. So what the harness defines what the agent can see, can do, what tools it can use, what systems it can access, and when does it need human approval, how the actions are logged, and how the work is evaluated, and what happens when something goes wrong. The simplest way to think about it is that the model is the brain, the harness is the operating system. The model reasons, the harness controls how the reasoning becomes action. And that is the difference between an impressive AI demo and a serious enterprise capability. So you might ask, why should we care? Because many companies are doing a mistake right now, and with the pace of the AI improvement, maybe we risk staying behind if we don't use the right harness. Because the harnesses create accountability, and most of the companies are on the model's capability question and not how to create accountability around their workflows. We're treating the model as a strategy. We say we're using ChatGPT, we're using Claude or Gemini, or even we're using open source, so we have a silo around our data. But this is like saying our company uses electricity. It tells nothing about what we actually built. The model is not the business system. The business system is the workflow, the data, the tools, the permission, the approval process, the monitoring, and the measurable outcome. This is the harness conversation. And this is where we as executives need to shift our thinking. The question is not how do we give employees access to AI? The question is where should AI participate in the company and under what controls? This is a very different question because once AI participates in business operations, intelligence of the model alone is not enough. You need control, you need traceability, we need reliability, escalation paths, and auditability. We need cost discipline. This token maxing trend has gone too far, and there is no discipline and accountability and governance. And we need a clear definition of what the agent is allowed to do. That does not come from the model alone. That comes from the AI harness. Let's have an employee analogy. Think about hiring a very talented employee. You would never say you are smart. Here is the access to every company system. Make whatever decisions you want. That would be insane. Instead, we give that person a role. We give them permissions, we give them tools, a manager, approval thresholds, policies, performance metrics, escalation rules, and boundaries for this talented employee. And this is exactly what a harness does for an AI agent. It turns a genius level potential employee into governed capability. It says, this is your job, this is your data, these are your tools, your limits, the actions you can take, which of those actions required approval, and the evidence I need you to collect in order to feel safe. This is where you stop and escalate, and this is why the harness is not bureaucracy. The AI harness, is what allows autonomy to exist safely. Here is the phrase I always remember, and I would suggest that you remember too. Models create capability, harnesses create accountability. The model can understand the language, can reason, can draft, can classify, plan, and generate. But the harness answers the questions that matter inside the enterprise. Can we trust the action? Can we audit the result? Can we contain the failure? What's our control of the cost? How can we explain the decision of the AI system? Can we prove which data was used? Can we stop the system before it does anything risky? How can we collect metrics and improve it over time? And this is the difference between using AI and packaging your AI around an AI harness. A model gives us potential, a harness gives us operational controls. And we shouldn't approve any serious agents until both is defined inside our enterprise. So what is inside an agentic harness? An agentic harness has several parts. We don't need to know every technical detail, but it's important to understand the executive architecture of an AI harness. We can imagine that an AI harness is the executive package that allows our AI to operate safely and within the boundaries of our organization. There are 7 core layers of an AI harness. The tool layer is the first. This defines what an agent can do. Can it search documents? Can it go to our Salesforce? Does it have access to our CRM? Can it draft emails? Can it access patient records, for example? And the key question for us is, are those AIs and tools allowed to touch production systems, customers, or regulated data? If yes, the harness is prerequisite for our AI deployment. On a second layer of an AI harness, we have the permission layer, which defines what the agent is allowed to access. Not every agent should see every document. Not every agent should read customer data, financial records, or other business systems. In fact, many AI agents should have less access than the humans they support. The permission layer is where AI strategy meets cybersecurity. And for us, the executives, this is critical. Because if access control is weak, the agent can become a new risk surface. Let's talk a bit about the workflow layer now. This defines the steps the agent should follow. Many business tasks are not one-step tasks. They require a sequence. For example, understand the request, retrieve the right data, check the policy, compare the evidence, draft the output, flag uncertainty, ask for approval, and log the result. That would be a well-defined workflow from our AI harness to one of the agents it controls. The sequence also matters because with agents, small mistakes can propagate and compound over multiple steps and create a waterfall of risk. A harness helps prevent the agent from wandering outside the business process. Let's talk about the human approval layer. This defines when humans stay involved within our AI system. This is not about slowing AI down. This is about assigning the right level of autonomy to AI. Some tasks can be fully automated, some can be AI drafted but then human approved, and some can be AI recommended but human decided. Some of the tasks should not be delegated at all to AI. For example, an AI agent can summarize a sales calls automatically. It can draft a follow-up email, but a human might need to approve this email before it's sent. Some sensitive language needs to be corrected, maybe. An AI agent can flag a suspicious transaction, but a human may need to approve account action. Another example is an AI agent that can review a medical coding discrepancy, but a human expert may need to validate before submission. This is the right mindset. We shouldn't ask whether AI can be autonomous or not. Ask where the autonomy is appropriate. And this is what the harness defines, and this is the boundary between AI and human collaboration in a way which is safe for our organization. Let's talk about the evidence layer, because this one is one of the biggest differences between consumer AI and enterprise AI. In the enterprise, it's not enough for the agent to produce an answer. It needs to show support. What an evidence. What documents did it use? What policy did it cite? What data did it compare? What were the assumptions? Is there any certainty there? Uncertainty, which remains? Where should a human review? We should care about this because the evidence turns AI from magic into an accountable management system with the right logging of actions and decisions with the necessary uncertainty attached. If the system cannot show why it produced an output, it is very hard to trust at scale. And if the AI system cannot be inspected, it is very hard to defend. Let's talk now about the observability layer. That answers a simple question. What happened? When an AI agent completes a task, you need to know what it saw, what it did, what were the tools, the data, did it change anything, what was recommended, did it fail, where and why, and how much was the cost per action, whether there was a human approval or not, and whether the final output was useful. Without observability, AI becomes invisible work without measurable outcomes. And invisible work is very difficult to manage. If you cannot see the agent's behavior, you cannot improve it, govern it, or explain it. And finally, let's talk about the evaluation layer. This tells us whether the agent is actually good. We should be asking or not, did the demo look impressive? We should be asking the right questions. What was the task completion rate? What was the error rate? What was the escalation rate? What was the cost per completed task? What is the human correction rate of the AI output? What percentage of outputs are evidence-backed? What happens if the AI output is incomplete? What happens if an AI tool fails? And what happens when the AI agent is uncertain? Do we know that? Do we have a way to express it? This is where the AI becomes measurable in the evaluation layer of an AI harness. And once AI is measurable, it can become operational. Let's look into some examples of the difference between an AI agent that acts alone and an AI agent that has a harness, that has accountability in our enterprise. Imagine your company wants an AI sales agent. The naive version is connect an LLM to the CRM. Let it write outreach, maybe send emails, update deal stages, which sounds a bit productive, but it creates risk. It increases our risk surface if we leave it uncontrolled. What if it sends the wrong message to a very important strategic account? What if it promises a feature your product does not have because it hallucinated? What if it offers a discount outside our policy? How do we justify that to our account? What if it updates the CRM incorrectly and does it in scale and messes up completely our CRM and we don't have a backup? What if it uses old account information? What if it reaches out to a customer who should not be contacted? And this is why the harness matters. A properly harnessed sales agent might be allowed to do only those by our AI harness policy. Read the CRM history, not necessarily write, summarize account context, draft the outreach, recommend next best actions, prepare call briefs, flag missing follow-up, and this will be helpful. After that, it should require some human approval, especially for important accounts. And this is part of our AI harness design. But it may be not allowed to do, depending on what we decide with our technical plus executive team, that it shouldn't be allowed to send external emails without approval for certain account beyond the level of revenue. It shouldn't change the deal stage without logging a reason. So then if we check, we know why this deal stage was moved up or down. It shouldn't offer discounts outside approved rules. It shouldn't be allowed to create and invent product capabilities that don't exist. And it shouldn't conduct restricted accounts, sensitive accounts. It shouldn't ignore the account owner review, and that would help reduce the risk surface of our sales agent. Now the agent is useful. It is bounded and it gives our sales team leverage without creating uncontrolled risk. This is the goal. The goal is not maximum autonomy. The goal is appropriate autonomy, supervision, logging, and metrics of usefulness for iterations of improvement. Let's look into another example of how this would look like in healthcare operations, for example. This is a more sensitive example, more high stakes example. Imagine an AI agent that helps, for example, review medical coding. The agent might look at documentation, claims, codes, payer policies, compliance rules, and the model alone is not enough here, because in healthcare, being plausible is not the same as being correct. The harness needs to define for our AI agent in this case, which record the agent can access and what level of access. Does it have read-only or write capability? Which coding rules it can use? Which payer policies are current and not hallucinated? What evidence it must cite? And when a human coder must approve? If there are disagreements, how are they logged between the AI and the human, for example? And how protected health information, PHI, is handled? How audit trails are preserved and for how long and where? The agent, for example, should not simply say this code is wrong. It should say that based on this documentation, this coding rule, and this payer policy, so we have a record, a trail, an audit trail. Here is the suggested review item. Here is the evidence. Here is my confidence level for this. And here is what a human would validate based on my escalation policy. And this is the harness part of the AI agent that we built for our medical coding. This is the difference between an AI shortcut and an AI capability. Just using an agent without a harness creates risk. The harness creates leverage with accountability. What would be the steps for us if we are responsible for a project to approve or not an AI agent that our technical team built? Here is the 5 important executive questions before approving an AI agent. It's the practical part of our AI harness design. The first question is, let's define together what job is the actual job of the AI agent. Let's be specific. Is it research, drafting, review, classify, recommending? If the job is vague, the agent will be vague, and vague agents are hard to manage. After we accurately define the intended job of our AI agent, let's talk about the authority that we would give to each agent. Can it suggest? Can it execute without approval, and for what? Can it execute automatically but with a threshold? Can it write into production systems or not? Can it contact customers? Which decisions can it make? The authority part must be explicit. Most AI risk lives in unclear authority. The next question is the evidence that we should collect. We defined the job. We created the authority surface of the AI agent. Now we should look into the evidence that the agent must provide. Should it cite sources? Should it show its confidence for the decisions it made? Should it flag missing information? Expose some assumptions it made? Should it show our internal policy references? Identify any contradictions? Should it recommend human review? If the output matters, and depending on the risk surface of our output, the evidence also matters and should be an important part of our AI harness design. Executives shouldn't accept a black box recommendation, especially for high stakes workflows. The next question we should ask is what guardrails we build, because we might have collected the evidence, but we need to control and build guardrails around each of our AI agents. What do we mean by guardrails? It's what the agent should never do. For example, never expose sensitive data or have access to data or have right access to our production database. For example, do not contact customers without approval, or do not make unsupported claims, or do not modify records of our patients, or do not operate in this domain. This is only the allowed domains you should operate and never go outside those. Not override human decisions in some high-risk cases, and don't use unapproved sources. Guardrails are there not to slow the business down. Guardrails are there to let the business move faster without losing control. And the last and most important question of our AI harness design is how do we know it is working? The metrics. How do we establish a system that we know it's working and we know what to improve? This is where many AI pilots stay pilots and fail to become valuable products for our enterprise. We do not define success before we even start building our AI agent. So part of the AI harness design is our metrics. So we ask, what is the baseline of performance? What is the metric we are seeking to improve? How much time, how much cost, or what kind of quality should we measure and try to improve? What is the acceptance rate of our error rate? What is acceptable for an error rate? What is acceptable for escalation? Is our AI agent creating more work for humans, or is it helping, and how? What is the human correction rate of the AI agent output? What is the cost per task completion for our AI agent? And if we cannot measure all those, we cannot scale it, we cannot improve it, and it stays a pilot. If we cannot scale it, it is not enterprise capability. So the metric is a very important part of our AI agent design. And before we even start building an AI agent, if we get on a room and with our teams and discuss all these parts of our AI agent harness, our probabilities of success are much higher. Here is the boardroom test I would use. Before an AI agent goes live, I would ask my team to show me the harness diagram, not the demo, not the model, not the vendor slide. I would ask for the harness. Show me the workflow, show me the tools, the permissions, and the human approval points. What are the evidence you're collecting? Show me the logs. Show me the evaluation metrics, and show me what happens when the agent fails. If we haven't discussed those and there are projects in progress, I would require to go together in a room and use the whiteboard and start designing our agentic harness with these principles. We don't want more demos and more experiments. We want AI agentic systems with high probabilities of success. And this is actually about speed, because somebody might complain and say we are decreasing innovation because we don't allow our team to operate freely. This is actually about speed. The AI harness is about speeding things up and making them more valuable. This sounds like governance. Will this slow us down? You might get asked. Actually, the opposite is true. A good harness makes AI faster to deploy. It removes uncertainty. Legal teams know the boundaries or define them a priori, so they feel safe. Security teams know the permissions, and they participated in creating them, so they feel safer to approve the AI agent. And the business leaders know the workflow. The operators know the approval process, and the engineers know how to design their systems. And then all the teams, and especially us, the executives, know the success metrics. When the harness is missing, every AI project becomes a custom debate. Can we defend that? Can we write into what system? Who contacts who? When is if it is so vague, it slows us down, because at some point the legal team might intervene and say, does it follow this policy, your AI agent? And then you have to redesign the whole thing, which you could have saved time from the beginning. The harness creates the reusable, mutually agreed, useful, and reusable operating model, which mimics the organization and enterprise requirements. And this is how companies moved from scattered AI pilots to repeatable AI execution. There is a strategic shift we need to think about. We shouldn't be asking, how do we add more AI tools? The right question is, the one that I ask, how do we redesign workflows so AI can safely participate? This is the new executive level question in the AI age, because AI agents are not just software tools. They are new operational participants. And every operational participant needs a role, permissions, policies, supervision, measurement, and accountability. And this is what the harness provides. And this is why I believe the agentic harness will become one of the most important architectural ideas in enterprise AI. Not because it sounds technical, but because it answers the executive question: how do we get the leverage of AI without losing control of our business? I would like to close this episode of the podcast by just saying what is an agentic harness. A harness for our AI agents is the operating layer around our AI models and agents that turn raw intelligence into controlled business execution. The harness is our operating system that manages the tools, the permissions, the workflow, the evidence, the monitoring, the valuation, and governance of our AI models that we deploy in our organization. The model gives the AI agent intelligence, and an AI agent is nothing more than a simple LLM prompt with access to specific tools. But the harness gives the enterprise confidence around how our AI agents operate. And this is the lessons that I would like to remember. Models create capability, harnesses create accountability. So before your company launches another AI agent pilot, do not only ask, what model are we using? What does it do? Ask, what harness controls the model? Because the companies that win with AI will not be the ones with the most impressive demos. They will be the ones that can turn AI into a reliable, measurable, governed operating capability. And this is the real executive AI advantage. If you found this episode useful, follow us in YouTube or Spotify for the Executive AI Advantage podcast. And before your next AI agent project, ask your team one question. Show me the harness, not the demo, not the model, the harness. And if you don't have a harness, let's design it together. Because in the boardroom, intelligence is not enough. Controlled, harnessed intelligence is the real advantage. Thank you for listening to this podcast.